There's so much going on in the world. There's so much that's going on in our countries. And wherever you're from, there's probably some type of political, economical, personal battle that you're going through. And specifically in my country right now, there's just a lot of political turmoil. And I found myself getting very caught up in the hustle of it all. And that paired with bills, paired with life, paired with all the things that's going on around the world, it could heavily weigh us down. And there is a type of weight that gets put onto you when you focus on all of these things. When you allow all of these things to consume your mind, there's this insufferable weight that gets put on you, and you have no clue what to do because it seems like day by day by day, this burden is getting heavier and harder to carry. But in the midst of all of that, we tend to forget that there is rest, and that rest is allowed. And I know that it doesn't feel like it because our lives demand something of us. Our jobs demand something of us. Our education demands something of us. Our children demand things of us. Our friends, our family demand a version of us every single day. And we ourselves demand a version of ourselves to show up every single time we wake up and we get ready to start another day. And it can feel so overwhelming. I don't know if you've ever had the feeling of waking up and just being able to sleep and somehow escape all of the busyness of life, only to wake up and feel anxiety right away. And recently that happened to me this week because I came back from reading week in university, and I just came back to a bunch of assignments, a bunch of midterms, a bunch of tests, and I thought that I prepared enough for life, but we're never fully prepared for life because this is our first time doing life. And so I went to bed, and I've been having such a difficult week, and in the middle of the week, during the nighttime, went to bed, I woke up in the morning and I was hit with this immediate pain in my stomach. And I know this pain because it's all too familiar, and it's that pain of anxiety. And this anxiety feels so crippling, like you can't do anything. And it's this type of anxiety where you have so much to do, and that is what makes you anxious. And I've been trying so hard to find loopholes around this, like going to bed early so I can wake up super early and have more time in my day, but I always end up finding myself not having enough time to conquer the busyness of the world and finding myself super exhausted. I've always been a tea person. I've never been somebody who drinks coffee, but I've also been finding myself relying on stimulators like caffeine to keep me going throughout the day. And stimulators like sugar as well, and these things cloud and clog our brain, but it's the stimulant that we're on to keep us running constantly like hamsters on wheels, to get everything done and to have everything figured out. And this pressure to have everything figured out is so overwhelming. But what if there was rest? What if there was a promised rest? What if there was an undeniable rest? What if there was one day of rejuvenation to prepare you for the next week ahead? There is a promised rest, and God promises to give us rest. God promises to comfort us. And, whenever I'm talking to people, and they figure out I'm Christian or whatever, and I'm telling them about, the commandments that I follow or the certain things that I do to make my lifestyle line up with that of what God requires of me, people always get so surprised when I tell them that I observe the Sabbath. And I know a lot of Christians do not observe the Sabbath because a lot of Christians are lukewarm, or a lot of Christians pick and choose what it is that they want to follow. But when we commit to something, we give our all to that thing. And so I told myself, if I'm committing to God, I have to give my all to everything that He requires of me. And so one of those things was following His commandments, and one of the commandments was to keep the Sabbath holy. And so I try my best to continuously observe the Sabbath. Now, personally for me, the Sabbath day is a Saturday. And so on that day, I get close to God. I don't do any work. I don't do any finances. I do nothing work related. I try my best to do the least amount of work or manual labor possible. And on that Sabbath day, it is just like the most calming feeling ever. I've actually found myself looking forward to Sabbath days because I know that it is a promised rest. And if God rested on the seventh day. We are not above him. We need to rest too, and there's something about that rest that just rejuvenates you. When I wake up on a Sabbath morning, I feel so calm. I could take my morning slowly because I know that the day and the world requires nothing of me on that day. And I know that the only thing that's required of me is to rest. The only thing that's required of me is to take time to myself and to do things that make me happy. And self-care is so important, specifically in this time and age, guys. Like, people are literally living paycheck to paycheck, trying to pick up as much shifts as possible in order to make ends meet. And so in the hustle of all of that, you may be wondering, how will I ever find time to do things that I love? How will I even ever find time to observe a Sabbath, right? Like, that's an extra day of work. That's an extra $500, just an extra time that I could use to finish up this assignment. But when we think of it that way, we quickly fall into burnout. And I used to struggle with burnout so much. It was so bad. It always happened during like the January to June period. And I was always burning out, and I couldn't understand why. And that was because I was constantly operating without getting proper sleep, without taking time to come to myself and sit in solace and sit in silence and reflect on my week, reflect on how I'm feeling, tune in with my body and ask my body how it's feeling. And so, paired with having good habits like eating well or going to the gym, it is so important to rest and be grateful that you made it through. When I'm filming this is the last day of the month, and a lot of us just operate days like this like any other day. And I know it is any other day, but you also have to remember so many people didn't see the end of the month. The amount of things that happen in a month is like ridiculous. There's so much distractions between airplanes, between political turmoil, between threats. Like, there is so much happening. And I know it seems impossible to take a moment and breathe, but if you take a moment and breathe, you will realize I made it. I made it through another week. I made it through another month. And that is the whole entire purpose of our daily bread prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. It means, God, whatever it is that you need to give me today, equip me for today. Whatever it is that you need to use to sustain me today, equip me for today. And sometimes, if we sit in silence and we ask God, what do you require of me today? I remember I asked him that, and this whole week he said, I just want you to be still. I just want you to take things slowly. And it is so important to be still, and it is so important to move with grace and to know that you have the grace to live a quiet life, to know that you have the grace to live a slow, soft life. And I know it doesn't seem like that, because in certain seasons you have to keep training, you have to keep hustling, you have to keep going, and I know it doesn't seem like you have the grace for it. But if you really sit in the arms of your Father, you will realize that though everything the world tells us that we have to keep going, that we can't take breaks, whatever God says, that is what goes. Whatever God commands, that will be so. And the Bible talks about how God does what he pleases. And so if God pleases for us to have a rest, if God pleases for us to take a day off of all of our work, then trust and believe that he will sustain you. If you think, oh, well, if I work that Saturday, I can have enough money to make my rent. Trust God enough to be like, you know what? I'm going to respect his commandments, and I'm not going to work that day. And he will provide for me some way, somehow, and watch God move. So if you needed a reminder today, you made it through. I am proud of you. You should be so proud of yourself in a world where literally everything is crashing and burning and people are turning to the most evil, horrible version of themselves. I'm proud of you for staying true to who you are. I'm proud of you for continuing to be kind. I'm proud of you for continuing to be a good person despite the amount of people who choose to be selfish, who choose to be conceited. And remember that gratitude is the best attitude. It is the most corniest saying ever, but it is so, so true. When we operate from a place of gratitude, and when we operate from a place of contentment, everything works in our favor.